Today I'm going to be showing you how to do a handlebar change on a 2014 Harley Davidson XL 1200X, also known as the Harley 48. Alright, so the bars that I picked for this project is a pair of built-well chumps. These are an 8-inch rise, so we are going to have to replace the front brake line. To go ahead and get all of this old brake fluid out and get the brake line off, it's much easier to go ahead and try to do this with the original bars on, so you're not trying to hold everything in your hands and move it around that way. So go ahead and take a number 2 Phillips head, and we're going to remove these on each side. Little tip, sometimes they can be stiff. Take a mallet and just lightly tap them on the top, and then they should break free very easily. Go ahead and do that on the other side. And again, they come off very, very easily. Just go ahead and get these removed. And set them off to the side. Okay, so for this next part, we're gonna be sucking all the old brake fluid out of the brake caliper, the brake line, and the brake master cylinder. I'm just using a simple brake suction tool. Go ahead and build up some pressure on that. And then we're just gonna break this loose. Once you sucked all the brake fluid out, go ahead and get in here with a paper towel. Just clean out any excess oil. Make sure it's nice and clean. Coming back over here, by the way, this little brake bleed nipple, this is a 5/16 wrench on that. Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove the brake line holder. And that's gonna be a 3/16 Allen head. Watch out whenever you're taking this off, you've got one little washer at the bottom. Make sure you don't lose that, hang on to it. With this holder, all it is metal, so just go ahead and reach up in here, bend it apart, and it should just pop around the rubber. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and take off these banjo bolts down here at the caliper, and also up here at the top at the master cylinder. Both of these are going to be 12 millimeter. Now go ahead and remove the banjo bolt right here on the master cylinder. We're going to do so using a 12 millimeter socket. You may have some fluid that starts to come out. Just go ahead and get your paper towel at the bottom and have it ready to wipe up that little bit of excess that drips. And a little bit's probably gonna drip. Just go ahead and wipe that up with a rag and make sure you get all the surfaces clean. Let's go ahead and finish up getting this brake line off. We're gonna come up to the master cylinder now and do the same thing using the same 12 millimeter socket. This one's probably gonna drip as well, so go ahead and stage something like a paper towel to catch some of the excess that drips off. Just like that, go ahead and feed it and then sit your old brake line off to the side. Also, go ahead and remove the other brake line clamp. It's up at the top on the triple clamp. It's different, it's not the same. That one's going to be a T25 Torx bit. Again, a lot of people think that a Torx bit is the same as an Allen head. It is not. This just happens to be a tamper-proof Torx bit because the little hole there in the center. But again, that's a T25. Don't use an Allen head with that. Next, we're going to be removing the hand controls over on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. For me, on my bike, I had bar end mirrors before. So to remove those, it's just this right here with a 5mm Allen head. I've already got the left-hand side off. All it is it just goes up in the bar like that. So once you loosen this, you don't have to take it all the way out. Just boom, slips right out. So if you do have bar and mirrors, it's very simple. That's how you take those apart. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the left-hand controls, starting with the clutch perch. This is gonna be a T27 Torx bit. We'll go ahead and remove those now. So we're gonna come right here with a T25. We'll remove this one, and then there's one right underneath here. I'll go ahead and remove those now with a T25 bit. Once both of those are removed, top and bottom, this just comes apart. It's like a clamshell. The top piece is independent of the bottom. Nothing's connected. It's literally just a housing. Go ahead and remove that. You can sit that down on something if you've got something tall enough, or you can just let it hang. I prefer just to use something like a bungee cord and let it hang from the triple clamps. Okay, one thing I forgot to mention is right up under here, I don't know if the camera will focus so you can see it, there's a hole here, and then there's one more right here. It's like this on each side. You got these little plastic clips, and what they do is hold all this wiring up against the bars. To get those off, I just use a pair of needle nose pliers. You can try to pinch them and pull them out. Some of them or a lot harder than others, but just go ahead, grab onto those and pull them out. Again, you can just pinch them together and they should slip right out. For this grip, since I'm doing a handlebar change, I went ahead and got some new grips. If you wanted to, you could try to save this by just taking a really thin flat blade screwdriver, stick under there, get some WD-40, spray it on and twist it off. But good luck with that. Usually I just take a razor blade and cut them straight off. Now over on the right hand side, I'm going to use the same T27 Torx bit, and I'm going to remove both screws over here. Be careful whenever you're doing this, there's nothing else holding this brake lever and master cylinder once you do this, so you don't want to drop it and let it fall on the floor, hit the bike and scratch it. Just like that. Go ahead and set this up to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and take apart the throttle housing. I went ahead and took these off just to save time. These are the same T25 Torx bits. There's going to be one here, and then there's also one right underneath, just like on the other side. Once you've got both of those removed, again, this top piece, it's independent. It just slides right off, just like that. Now we're gonna have to take apart the cables in here, get these disconnected from the throttle tube, go ahead and put some slack in it. We're gonna adjust this right here, break it loose, and screw it down. That's gonna give us some slack. We can reach in here and I'll show you how to remove those next. Okay, go ahead, like I said, break this loose. This is a 3/8. Both of these are. Since I don't have a second 3/8, you can just use a small adjustable wrench. Once you got that broke loose, go ahead, screw it on down, and put some more slack in the cable. All right, let's see if I can bring in a little closer so you can see how these little brass holders come out on the cables. Do this with some needle nose so you can see in a little bit more detail so my fingers aren't in the way. So very gently get your throttle cable. You don't want to be pinching down on this and cause it to split and fray. Very gently come up, slide these out. Be very careful not to send these flying either, because the little brass pieces are very, very tiny. Like that. Slide these down on the cable just a little bit, and then they'll move past that ball. So again, just slide them down, and they'll move right out of the way. On the other one, do the exact same thing. Slide it out, slide down on the cable, and then boom. Just put these somewhere safe because you're gonna need these later, don't lose them. All right, now that we've removed the hand controls on each side, we can go ahead and take a 1/4 inch Allen bit and start removing the handlebars. Just be aware that once you start loosening these, your handlebars could roll backwards. These shouldn't, because the OEM handlebars on this particular bike are knurled handlebars. Okay, so we got the handlebars off now, and like I said earlier, these handlebars are knurled, the OEM bars are, and all that is a machining process that's done to the metal, and it gives texture right in here at the clamping points. The Biltwell handlebars that I got are non-knurled handlebars, so it's just smooth. To make certain that these are not gonna slip at all once they're in the clamps, you can get this really cool compound from Park Tool called Super Grip. And what this is mainly designed and used for is mountain bikes. If you've got two carbon fiber surfaces going together that are smooth, you can't torque carbon fiber parts down very, very tight because you'll end up splitting the carbon. With this, just use a little bit because it will scratch surfaces. So only put this right here in the handlebar clamp area. Don't apply it on the handlebar, just put a little bit right in here and on the top part, and then sit your handlebars into it. Think of this compound kind of like Gojo, if you've ever cleaned your hands with that. It's similar. It's got super fine grit in there that's gonna help hold the bars. So I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and prep the handlebar clamp surface with that compound I was telling you about. Again, just a very, very light amount. Don't go crazy and overkill it with this. So get you just a little bit on a Q-tip or whatever you want to use, and I'm just going to come inside here on the clamp area and just spread that around And the reason I'm doing it on the clamp area is because if I put it on the bars, I don't know exactly where they're gonna sit in the clamp, so I don't wanna scratch up the handlebars and that be visible if it's not in the right spot. So do a little bit on each side. Spread it around. And then I might also put some up here in the top area as well. Just where the bars are gonna sit. Don't go everywhere with it. So the clamp surface is prepped with a compound that I'm using, and I've also got the clamp bolts staged off to the side. I already put thread locker on those. So very carefully, so you don't scratch your new bars, you're gonna lift up. Go ahead and set them about where you think you're gonna want them. We can make small corrections later. Go ahead and lay them down in there. Set the top piece of your clamps back over. And then go ahead, take your bolts and snug them up a little bit. Again, we're not gonna torque these down yet because once I get everything back together, I'm gonna sit on the bike, kind of position the bars where it's comfortable for me, and then I'll go ahead and torque them down. All right, so at this point with the bars snug down a little bit, we're gonna go ahead and start putting the hand controls back on in the reverse order that they came off. So go ahead and put this piece right back on, and make sure that if you've got dimpled handlebars, which you should for these, that way you don't end up pinching your wires, make sure that those are lined up underneath. Go ahead and put the top piece back on. Grab your 2 screws and the T25 Torx bit and snug those back down. So when you're putting this clutch perch back on, make sure that the little cutout right here is also lined up with this right here. These are going to mate together. And then snug these T27s down. Over on the right hand side, we're going to go ahead and put those controls on. You can either reuse your old grip or you can use new grips like I did. I just happened to go with the R&S black knurled fusion grips. I really like the looks of these. Go ahead and slip that on. Take your housing, slide that up on the bar. Take that little brass holder piece and slip that back over the wires, same way it came off. This can kind of be tricky, holding everything in place while you get this going into the grip. But just shove that into place and then pull your throttle cable around. And then we're going to do the exact same thing for the other cable. Just like that. And then we'll put these throttle cables into position. Just like so. Make sure these little brass buttons are pushed all the way in for both. Once you've completed that and you've got the proper amount of free play back in your throttle tube, you should have put some grease on this. Go ahead, snug it down and slide this back over it. You're gonna take your front brake master cylinder and install that. Just like on the clutch perch on this one, you've got a little cutout that's gonna line up with this right here. Let's go ahead and do that. Make sure the wire from the throttle housing is pushed up in the dimple into the handlebar so you don't pinch that. Then go ahead, go back to your T27 and slide those down. Okay, so next we're gonna go ahead and install the front brake line. I went with a Magnum stainless XR steel braided line. You don't necessarily have to get a steel braided brake line. You could just go with the cheaper alternative and just get a vinyl. The reason you want to go with a stainless steel braided line is that it's not going to expand as much whenever you're applying the brakes, therefore you're going to get better braking power. So up here at the banjo bolt, you should have gotten new crush washers. If you didn't, then you need to go ahead and purchase some new ones. It's the little gold washer there. And then I'll put some thread locker on, and then you'll take the other crush washer and put it on right there. And then you'll go ahead and thread this side into the front brake master cylinder, and then the other side we'll go ahead, work on it, and we'll thread that into the brake caliper. Go ahead and snug this one up, and based off of the Harley service manual, both of these banjo bolts up here for the master cylinder and for the brake caliper are going to be 14 to 18 foot-pound, or if you're Newton metric, it's going to be 19 to 24 for both. All right, so once you've got the top one done, go ahead and come down here. Once you've routed your brake line, same thing, put some thread locker on, take a new crush washer, put it on, and slide it through the eyelet. And on this has got a bend in it. That bend is going to go away from the brake caliper. Go ahead, take your other crush washer, slide it on, and then thread this up. Take your 12, go ahead, snug that one. And then same as up top, you're gonna torque this one down to 14 to 18 foot-pounds or 19 to 24 Newton metric. Banjo bolts are torqued down, we're ready to move on. But real quick, I want to let you know, on your stock Harley brake line, you've got these right here, which is where your brake line mounts went around and they held them in place. New cable, at least for this one, depending on which one you get, the Magnum XR like I got, did not come with any holders. So normally you would just have your mount right there, and this cable would be free to slide back and forth. You could wrap that in some electrical tape, but what I did was just take a little razor blade and very carefully cut down the center of them, and you can pull these off. They're not glued on or anything like that, but just real carefully cut them and they pop right off. I'm not gonna be using this front brake line. I'm also not gonna be trying to sell it to anybody. It's probably just gonna go in the trash. So even if I did nick the cable, I'm not really worried about that, but I did want to take these off so I could place them on my new brake line and they would mount up and stay snug and secure. At this point, I went ahead and put the rubber piece on the new brake line and got the clamp back on, and the round part of this clamp is gonna face forward towards the front tire. So go ahead and get that into place. Take your bolt with the washer that's on it and go ahead and put that in and secure it. Be sure to leave enough slack in your brake line so the forks can fully decompress. Okay, back over to the right hand side. I went ahead and put the rubber piece back on, and you can adjust this to wherever you're going to need it. Go ahead, take your clamp, slide it back over. The rounded part is gonna face to the right if you're standing behind the bike. Go ahead and kind of bend that back into place, get it staged. It can be kind of hard. Get the bolt out of the way if you need to, pinch it down, and then push it back through. Up here at the triple clamp, be very, very careful. This is just painted. You don't want to scratch it with the screw. And this is a T25 Torx bit. And just go very, very slow. Now that our new brake line is installed, it's time to go ahead and fill it with some DOT4 brake fluid. I'm just gonna explain this part as best I can just because I don't have enough hands to do everything. I'm actually gonna have to get another person to come and give me a hand with doing this. So what I've done up here is just taking a paper towel, put it over it to keep from brake fluid spilling everywhere. And what I'm gonna do is go ahead and fill this up. And then I'm gonna come back down here with the same vacuum tool that we used at the beginning of the video to get the old brake fluid out. I'm gonna go ahead, build up some pressure on it. Then I'm gonna break this little nipple loose. It's gonna allow the brake fluid to start flowing for a while. And the person up here, you wanna make sure that you still got enough brake fluid in here so you don't run empty, because once you're down to here, if you let it run empty, you're just gonna pull more air back into the brake line, which is what we're trying to avoid. We're trying to bleed all the air out of the brake system as possible. You're gonna top this back off, continue to fill it up. Down here, we're just letting the brake fluid run through the line, and then we're gonna snug this back up down here, take the vacuum off. Once this is tight, come back up top, pull your brake lever. You do not have to put the cap back on just to test to see if you have air in your system. At this point, it's gonna be sealed enough with the fluid on top. Go ahead, you should squeeze your front brake. It should be firm. If it's all mushy and it's going like way back here, then you've still got quite a bit of air in your brake line. So all you would do is just go back down to the bottom and continue to bleed air off. By breaking that loose again, suck more brake fluid out. Again, being aware, making sure that you're not running this completely empty, because if you do, you're just gonna be sucking more air back into the line. All right, we got the brake fluid in, the system's bled. And then just to show, you should have a pretty firm pull on the brake lever. Again, it shouldn't be coming all the way back to the bar. Once you've done that, go ahead and install the cap. Now that the brakes are bled, those feel good, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the left grip, and we're gonna glue this on. So my particular grips, the RLNS, they came with some glue. You could just use any type of regular grip glue or any type of CA glue. Just go ahead and put a little bit of glue down in the grip. And then we're just gonna put a little bit on the bar itself. And once you do this, you want to move fast with it. Go ahead and shove it on there all the way. Spin it around and then leave it. Let them set up and let them dry. So we're down to the last few pieces. We're just gonna install the right-hand mirror. I've already installed the left one over there. So all you're gonna do, slide these over to the left from where you're seeing it. Slide it up through the hole. We've got, let's see here, one little washer right there. Goes down over the top of that. Take this, go ahead, thread it on, and snug it up. The Torx bit for this, the size is a T40. The stock clutch cable does work with these handlebars. In order to get a little bit more slack in the cable, normally this clutch cable with this clamp is mounted further down here. All you do is just reach, this snaps off and pulls away from the frame, and you can take this and you can pull it up a little bit closer and then just reclamp it back to the frame up here, and that'll give you a little bit more slack, so you'll have some more free play in the line. Once you've got everything hooked up, including all your wiring, your throttle cables and all, gently turn the bars full lock left and full lock right. Make sure that nothing's going to be binding. For these particular handlebars, I didn't have to do anything except for change out the front brake line. Your bike for your specific model may be different, so make sure you measure all of that stuff and order the correct lengths. Here we are, we've got the final result of the Built-Well Chumps handlebars installed. Everything's been torqued and tightened down. I went ahead and just ran some zip ties around the bars just to secure the wiring on each side. One side note, whenever you get your mirrors on, if you're going to use the OEM mirrors that hang underneath, be very careful depending on where you have yours positioned at. Once you turn the handlebars full lock left and right, make sure that you've got enough clearance on each side. These are still fairly close, but once you get them on, again, just be very, very careful not to slam them right into your tank. You probably will have to make some adjustments to make those work. But there you are. There is the finished result of those handlebars.